is Jeremy Kimball. I do some MMA stuff. Most people know me by. But I'm going to move on and, branch out into some other stuff in this podcast world. So I'm going to do a podcast about comics, call it the Grizz Den Comic Podcast, something like that, based all under the Grizz Den umbrella. So I do write a comic right now with my buddy Colin. We're working on it very slowly, like as slow as you can work on anything, but we are trying to get a comic done. And I would love to have him on this podcast and talk about some of the other stuff that he's into. Like, he's going to have a whole different set of comics that he's into than I do. And, he's also the artist, so he can tell us backgrounds on, like, the drawing and how hard that is and what that takes and all that insight. And so hopefully we can get him on and kind of just bounce each other ideas off each other too, which is, like, I think a big thing for like a comic podcast is you can talk, debate, all that stuff instead of just doing it by yourself. But I want to get some content out there. I have that Grizz Den Comics page on Facebook, and it's just kind of sitting there idle. So I want to be able to put some content on there. They kind of just get the creative stuff going on it. So I'll give a little background on myself and what got me into comics. Just kind of always liked comics when I was growing up, but got out of it because you get that high school phase where you think you're too cool for this or that. Got out of pro wrestling for a while too, and I love pro wrestling. Just because you think, oh, I shouldn't be liking that stuff in high school, but really, when you start getting older past that phase, you're like, who fucking cares what anybody thinks? It should be what I enjoy. So I'm back to that in my life, and I enjoy comics, and I buy the comics, I read the comics, I watch the movies, I support even the D.C. movies, which keep letting us all down. I go and support them too, because I don't want that industry to die. I love comics. They've been around since forever, since when my parents were younger and before them, so I would love the golden age of comics to come back, where it's people buying comics, and that's a really good profitable industry for everybody, besides just the movies. But a lot of people get their knowledge just from the movies, which is fine because the movies do a really good job, especially the Marvel movies do a very good job of tapping into comic storylines. And, obviously the Infinity Gauntlet is the one that just happened, with all the movies leading up to that, getting into the Infinity Gauntlet. And then now they're going into the next phase of Marvel, which I'm super excited for. It's going to be Cosmos, and yeah, I'm just super excited for it. Hopefully they'll slip some Secret War stuff in there, which it looks like they're going to. So yeah, it's just super excited for what that's going to bring, and moving on to the next set. I'll get into that more a little bit later, but right now I just want to, Powderpuff Girls. I just want to get into my favorite characters from both brands of the main comics. Obviously, all the other type of comics I will get into eventually through these podcasts, but I'll just focus this on Marvel and DC because that's what most people know. Those are the mainstream ones. DC, my favorite characters are obviously... Oh, I turned the wrong way. Obviously, Dick Grayson, Nightwing, Robin, the Boy Wonder, the original Robin, and the best Robin. I feel, there's all these other Robins, the big ones being like Tim Drake, Damian, and Jason Todd, Red Hood, which all fine Robins, whatever. Everybody after them, the female Robins, all that, great. But there's only one original, and the best one, Nightwing. Not up for debate with me. He is my favorite. I buy all of his comics that come out, the big Rebirth series. Love them. I buy them all the time. Wasn't a huge fan of when he was like a secret agent, but I love how they tap into that, into the Rebirth comics. But he's not like going on to full like super spy agent shit in those comics like he did in the ones before. So Yes, but he's my favorite Robin. He's my favorite character in DC. Well, one of two of my favorite characters in DC. The second being Flash, but the Wally West Flash, because he is just the most badass Flash. I got into Young Justice, so obviously on Young Justice, if you've seen it, he's the one that sacrifices himself, and he's just a badass. Just one of my favorites. Kind of just enjoy his storylines. I enjoy when him and Dick talk and communicate with each other and have that bromance play out in the comics. So that was a big one for me. Those two together are just pure gold to me. And then my favorite comic book character of all time, period, cross brands, all of it, but he is a Marvel guy, is Spider-Man, which a lot of people like Spider-Man, being that a lot of people can relate. Not that I was like a nerdy kid, a smart kid or anything like that, but I did love Peter Parker. I loved his attitude. I loved how it happened to him. I just, you don't get better than Peter Parker. And yes, Miles is great. 2099 is great. They're all great, but Peter Parker, that's the one I'll go OG with. I do love Barry Allen Flash, but Wally West is just took it to the next level for me on the DC side. There hasn't been another Spider-Man that has done that for me. So Peter Parker will be my favorite hero till I die. I teach Ella about him, and I'll teach my future kids about him. Like, just what it is, Peter Parker. So yeah, all three different types of personalities too, and I think that's the best thing about comics is they all have some trait I like that I that translates to me, and that's the big thing about comics is you can read any comic you want and you can love whoever you want, because whatever that is that resonates with you is what you're going to love about it. And you find that character, you're not going to want to put down the comics. You're not going to want to not see whatever they're going to do. If they're going to do a show with them or a movie with them or whatever it is, you're just going to be super excited to see that person, So for me, those are my three that I'm going to support and watch everything that they do with those characters. They can have all my money for those three characters, and I will watch 100 Spider-Man movies, and I will watch whatever they give me with Nightwing, and I will watch whatever they give me with Wally West. So that's those three. Those are my favorite comics, my favorite comic book characters. And if you want to type in below who your favorite characters are, cool, let's do that. Start a thread with what comics give you inspiration and why. I think the best thing about Dick Grayson is he's always doing the right thing. Everything he does is about doing the right thing. And, Batman is that way as well, but Dick Grayson is always the best of everybody. When they want to turn bad, they have to look at Dick Grayson and be like, he wouldn't do that. And even Batman has that in his mind sometimes where he's in that immersed in what he's doing and he might go too far and he's got to think, fuck, Dick wouldn't do this. Like, he's the best of all of them. And I've read countless stories of everybody that he's touched in the DC universe and everybody that he's had an influence on, and it's pretty much everybody that's a hero in that universe. Even Superman. Like, Superman comes and grabs him up and they go hang out for a little bit. Like, they all know that he's the best of all of them, and he's the heart that drives a lot of the DC stuff. He's the guy that's fucking always there for Damian. That relationship is so cool to me. Damian's always a little punk ass bitch, but Dick is always there for him. He's always there for him, always looking out for him, and they're brothers. And no matter what they want to say about each other, or when they want to fight each other, they are brothers. And not only are they brothers, they know that Dick's the older brother because Dick beats all the asses. So just for me, that's like why that resonates with me with Dick Grayson is he is the big brother. I've always been a big brother to people and always had people looking up to me, and I've not always been the person that's the heart of that, the best of them, and it drives me to want to be the best of my group of people that look up to me. And having that kind of pops in the back of your head. You're like, all right, I gotta be the best for these people so they can always see that guiding light. You want to be more like Dick Grayson than you do Batman. Even though Batman has some cooler toys and probably a cooler moveset, but that's why I love Nightwing. It's hot in this room, and a little nervous doing this, so I'm drinking a lot. I keep getting that dry throat, but I'm just gonna power through and get one down. This is like take 30 for reals of doing this, so I'm just gonna let it fly and go from there. Move on next time and have a little bit better direction of what I want to do, but I just wanted to get it out and do it. So yeah, I'm gonna move on to Marvel news. I'm gonna pull up real quick Phase 4, everything they released and all that. First of all, obviously Phase 3 just ended. Like, was that so many years of my life just waiting for that one last final end game. And they did not disappoint. Marvel did everything great. They set up everything great, and I think Phase 1 was all about Tony being a fuck up, and that leading into him sacrificing himself because of all the fuck ups he's had. But he's always been the core, the heart. So I'm very excited to see where it's going to go after this. Going into Phase 4, they don't really have that. They kind of made it like Spider-Man is that, but with all the cosmos that's coming, all of the stuff that they're going to be scattered, they might have to bring in the multiverse, all of that. Who's going to be the heart? Who's going to be that driving heart and force like Iron Man was? He did so much wrong and so much right in those movies, and it's just like, who's going to be that? Not necessarily, I don't want to see the same, like, repetitive, let me fuck up all of Phase 4 so I can end it in Avengers and fucking kill myself for the better of everybody. Though, Tony got to be the fuck up. Let's move on. He was always the fuck up. He always tried too hard. He would always be in his own head. He was too smart for his own good sometimes. And that moved him to being a fuck up, like building Ultron to stop whatever was coming. Boom, Ultron fucking turns on everybody. But Tony's always there to clean up the mess. So, and then Steve Rogers gone, who was another key part of that. Like, he was also heart, always trying to do things the right way, just like I was just talking about with Dick Grayson. He was always doing everything the right way, always being that voice for the right thing, and always would fight tooth and nail to keep up his morals. So, moving on from that, what's it going to be? Phase 4, we don't really have a good look at that. Everything that happened with Spider-Man, great. I love it. I think the movie was a great way to wrap up Phase 3, and I think it was a good way to leave us all mind-fucked that, okay, Spider-Man is going to be fucking fucked now because old Jameson had to throw it out there and play the video and say it was Peter Parker's Spider-Man from Mysterio. So where's that going to go? I think the next Spider-Man, I think they should take their time. I think the next Spider-Man, they should introduce Daredevil. It should be the same guy from the Netflix show, because I think he's very good. I think he's a great Matt Murdock, and I think, if they put him in that role, they can have that guy for a while. They can sign him, and I think there's going to be a different switch, though. So the Spider-Man movie's great. I think that'll continue. I think the next one, Matty Murdock should come in and be his lawyer, and it should be the guy from Netflix. And the whole movie is that, based around him getting out of that, maybe some more romance stuff. And I think at the end of that movie, they should introduce Deadpool and have like some buddy stuff with that, because that's what I want to see, but I don't want them to rush it. I want them to get there slowly. I want that next movie to kind of get him out of that more serious tone, like just get a little bit into it, kind of like Civil War style. And, obviously you got to have the comedy in it with Ned and stuff like that. But after we move past that, a little bit more of a somber movie, I think let's get into Spider-Man. Let's get into this funny guy who, was a nervous wreck with his suit off and is the nerdy kid and, stumbles over his words. He's not too cool. And then he puts on the suit and he's that cool guy. And I would love to see that interact with Deadpool, but I don't want it to be forced. I don't want it to be right into the next movie. I'd rather wait 3-4 years until that comes out. Just give us some Spider-Man for a long time that's good. And flows well together. Not just, let me cram this in here because everybody wants it. Yes, I think we all want to see Spider-Man and Deadpool interact. But I think we should get to Daredevil first as his lawyer, figure out all that stuff, and then move on to that. Now, as far as the actual Phase 4 goes, we have Black Widow, which is a show. There's a lot of shows coming out in Phase 4. The Falcon and Winter Soldier show. The Eternals, I think, is a movie. It should be. I think it's going to be the more serious movie is what they were talking about. Which would be great to introduce all of that, the Cosmos type stuff. And just kind of introduce the Eternals in a good way. I think they kind of messed up those shows a little bit. Obviously they ran their course. And they tried. But I think you bring in the movie, and I think they can do really well with it. I think they have some big name actors for it. And it won't be as much of an action movie, I don't think. I think it'll be more dialogue and more getting into what they are, what the Cosmos are, all of that. I think that'll tie into what the next phase is going to be. WandaVision, which I think is a show. Not quite sure. But Doctor Strange is supposed to be their first horror movie, and that's going to be dope. First of all, if you watch the first Strange movie, it's strange. Pun intended. But yeah, it's a great movie, and it's all that mystical stuff. And now they're going to add a horror element in that, and that's going to be great. I think that'll also tie into the multiverse. So I think they're going to go two ways in this setting up. I think it's all Phase 4 is to set up Phase 5, and I think it's all going to be played on two different levels. I think we're going to have two phases kind of running at the same time. We're going to have the Cosmos type stuff, and when we get like the Guardians back, and I think the Thor is the last movie that they have set to release. That's all going to be obviously the Cosmos type stuff. But I think they're going to have another multiverse type stuff. So I think Doctor Strange and what we got here, the Eternals and that type of shit, maybe even the Loki show, are all going to be towards the timelines. So like how the timelines got messed with. Obviously, they haven't said it, but I don't think Cap made that time stream back to perfect. So sets up the multiverse, right? So now we can move on to bringing in some people like X-Men and in the Fantastic Four, and I think that's what that'll end up becoming. I think the multiverse will somehow bring in the X-Men and somehow bring in the Fantastic Four, obviously because we need them to come over. We have them, and so we need to use them, right? I don't think they're going to force it. I don't think they're going to make it fast. I think it's going to be two storylines at the same time. And I think the Avengers movie that we'll end up eventually seeing at the end of whatever phase will be how they're getting that together, right? How the Cosmos and the time stream run in together. So that's just my theory on it. I think they're going to do half and half. I think some of these are to bring attention to the cosmos, and I think some of these are to bring attention to the timeline, and then the multiverses. And then when we get the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, it's going to work perfectly together. They haven't missed yet. I don't think they're going to miss, and I think they're going to make these next 10 plus years great for all of us, for the next generations of kids that get to grow up seeing this and get to be introduced to new characters that they never thought they'd know, that I never thought they'd know, that I never knew. For me, I don't know it all. I think I'm more excited for like the Eternals, because I don't know much about the Eternals. I know a couple things here and there, but it was never a storyline that I really went to watch or read. So I don't know much about them. I'm looking forward, before it comes out, to getting to know more about them and to watch or to read some of those comics and kind of get myself familiar with them, so that way I'm not stuck at a loss in the movies. So, and then there's a lot of shows coming out, and there is one, I believe there is one that they haven't announced yet, which because there is 6, 8, 10 titles released, and there's supposed to be 11 in Phase 4. So I think they could easily, with the timeline, how they're doing it, pop in maybe an X-Men movie. Maybe they just fuck around and make a fun Deadpool movie that doesn't tie into any of it. I don't know. But I'm just excited for what's going to pop up. Blade is in it now. We got Blade back. And I'm intrigued to see how they bring Blade in it. Where the vampire's going to fit in? Is it going to fit in the Doctor Strange movie? Am I way off about that being a timeline type movie, or is the multiverse timeline stuff going to bring in vampires, and then we need Blade? So I'm excited to see where they tie that in, and maybe the unreleased name is the Blade movie. Maybe they'll make a Blade movie, and that'll be what the unreleased title that they haven't put in there yet. But I would feel like because they announced that there is a Blade, they would have just announced it on that. So I think it's going to be a hidden movie, one that maybe they don't even know what they're going to be yet. But obviously it's Marvel, so I'm sure they have whatever plan for that. So I think that's my Marvel news. Give me a second. I got to do some research. Also, I think they're going to end up bringing in the Sinister Six for Spider-Man. So maybe even 2 movies and then go into Deadpool. I have a bunch of DC stuff that I need to get caught up on the DC Universe app, which is a great app. If you don't have it, you should get it. You can read comics on it, which is fantastic. You can watch all the movies when they come out, and not the main movies, but all like the animated series that they have come out, and it's just a fun little app. Obviously, Young Justice season 3 is on it, so all the seasons are on it, but the new season's out too. And then Swamp Thing. There's a bunch of stuff I have to get caught up on, and just kind of see where they're going with the shows. I loved all the DC shows. I obviously love the Flash show, and I love Arrow, which Arrow got me back into comics as well, because when I started watching, like I was hurt or something, or sick, and I couldn't train like I wanted to. Couldn't train at all, period. I was on the couch for like a week straight, and I would just watch all the Arrow season 1 before like it was like popping. And I think like everybody got caught up on Netflix Arrow, and then that's what like popped it. That first season of Arrow, all I always remember is like getting me back onto comics too. So see if DC has any news out here coming up. I should be more specific in my Google feed. I put DC news, and they give me Washington DC news, which good for you, Google. Fucking taking me too literally. The Pennyworth show's coming out. They're going to do, hopefully they're doing a DC Teens Titans. Let me see that. Yeah, John Hickman wants to do a Teen Titans show or a movie. I think that would be great. I would love a Teen Titans movie. The Red Hood and the Outlaw Annuals is coming out. Nice. And then they're making the video game in development. So, yeah. Not too much breaking news there. Obviously, whatever movie is coming out next, I'm going to go and support. I think they need to do a lot to get back into making universe, and I think that starts with one movie. Make one movie, make it good, get out of this fucking dark camera shit. Like, I don't need to see dark camera angles. I don't need to see fucking half the shit I can't see because it's too dark. Let's get some good lighting in there. Let's have some fun. Let's open it up and let's just restart. Kick a whole reboot. You don't have to like reboot the whole thing. You know the direction you wanted to go, but it starts with one movie. Make us one good movie and continue that, and then worry about putting it all together. You know, they're not as good as Marvel in that aspect, and they need to start. You know, I love Shazam. Me and Ella love Shazam. Me, Ella, and Brittany love Shazam. My family. But that being said, it's that good movie. But where's that gonna build? So I got it. You had Wonder Woman, good movie. Aquaman, good movie, but I didn't feel like it had a very strong storyline. And then Shazam, which I thought was a great, fun movie, but didn't have a strong storyline. Give me a strong storyline. Give me something that we can build towards. Yes, I know you got to show us the origin stories, but really, you don't have to. You can look at the formula. You could have just hopped right into a different Shazam story. Mind you, the movie was fun, great, lots of laughs, loved it, but you could have just hopped in it and then explained the story after that. You know, maybe that was a little bit harder. Maybe that one's a bad example because Billy Batson's fucking... Well, they made him like 14 or 15 in the movie, but he's like, 8, 9 in the comics. So maybe that's a little bit harder to explain why this fucking guy's walking around as a big fucking superhero, and then when he says Shazam, he's a fucking 15-year-old boy. So maybe that one's a little bit bad example, but you could have hopped into a different story with Aquaman. I don't need to see what the fuck he's fighting in his home. Like, let's pop him into a different scenario. Look at Guardians of the Galaxies. Nobody really knew about Guardians of the Galaxy, and they didn't have an origin story. It wasn't an origin story movie. It was a movie, and then they would explain their backgrounds. But it wasn't an origin story movie. It was kind of how they got together, but it was a fucking movie. It was a movie that all the shit tied in. They were looking... he had the fucking Infinity Stone, and then they were fighting for it, and then they become fucking teammates, and I've cussed way too much in that sentence, but you get what I'm saying. So it wasn't really an origin story. It was just a good movie that connected everything together, and I didn't have to see where these people, even though you do kind of see where they come from, but really just Chris Pratt's character, Star-Lord. So, a little nervous on my first one here, guys. I'm going to get better. Trust me, I'm very knowledgeable about comics. I just very nervous doing this, even though it's really just for an audience of one. But that being said, I'm going to post it, and every time you post something and put yourself out there, it's nerve-wracking. It's a fearful thing, scary thing. But I did it. I wanted to get it done. And, this is going to be the Grizz Den Comics Podcast #1. And, I'm going to continue these and get back on my grind and work hard. I really, really want one of these to be successful, if not all of them. But I want the Grizz Den umbrella to be successful, and I want it to trickle down, and I want it to be special. I want people to want to tune in, watch me, watch whoever I put underneath the umbrella, and just kind of get it flowing as a business that works and pays me, Really, at the end of the day, so if you could share, subscribe, give me as many fucking followers as you can, I'd appreciate it. Everyone tell one. Let's all get this going, because at the end of the day, I want to do something I love. I want to be able to support people that want to do stuff they love. I want to be able to have this big umbrella where I can give people jobs and give them responsibilities and be able to provide in that aspect. So everyone tell one, let's get this Grizz Den umbrella going, man. Let's trickle it down, and let's get as many followers as I can, and then the more that happens, the more we can all benefit. All right, love you guys. I'm out.